Yeah, I guess I'll start this out by just talking about this book real quick. This is gonna be the next thing I read. Um, I'm super excited. I was doing a little research on it today, and it it really seems right up my alley. It really does. It's unfortunately this version doesn't have like the pictures in it. Um, Jung did a lot of pictures, and basically, try that's enough. Sorry. Someone was just like, I have my PS4 on, and someone just messaging me. I have no idea why. I haven't got a single message on that in like years. But yeah. Um, basically, this is Jung. He has like a falling out with Sigmund Freud, and basically he like retreated into himself, and he continued to see patients. But while he was seeing patients, he was like battling with, for lack of a better word, like demons. And he basically credits this time while he was writing this book as the time that made him so successful, the time that allowed him to become, as influential as he is seen as today. So yeah, very interesting. We'll get to a few videos. I found this quick video by Jordan Peterson. Hopefully it's a good one. Usually when I don't necessarily like a lot of his stuff now, but when he talks about books, I really always like it. Like he has a video on Notes from the Underground, and I was like, I did not get any of this from the story.
Here's another something worth considering, and I don't know how
Um,
important it is, but it might be really important. This is something that Carl Jung said, so it depends on how important Jung is. Jung was a tremendously insightful clinician, and he was a strange person, introverted visionary, high in introversion, very, 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 very high in openness, like off the charts. And also, God only knows what his IQ was. I mean, every time
you read Jung, it almost like reads like you're reading like a prophet or someone that is just knows all the answers to everything. Like I don't know how to put it aside from you can tell how intelligent he is when he's writing something like, I mean, obviously Tolkien was very smart. Obviously C.S. Lewis was very smart. Like, but most of the time when someone writes something, their intelligence doesn't usually bleed through when they're writing about something. It's granular, it's this, it's that. But like even in these scientific sort of books, you can still hear his voice. You can still hear his authenticity and his uniqueness. And it's just it's so impressive.
I read Jung, it's like reading Nietzsche. It's terrifying because, he's so damn smart that he can think up answers to questions that you don't even. It's not like you don't understand the answers. It's that you never conceptualized the damn questions. He's one of these visionaries who can see.
It's very weird because I would say Nietzsche and Jung are very similar, but Nietzsche was his intelligence was like destructive. It was ultimately what led him to become so nihilistic. I feel like there was a part of him that was trying to break everything down while he was trying to be happy, and the part that was trying to break everything down won. And unfortunately, he died way before he should have. But Jung was one of the few examples of a great mind, of a great genius, of a prodigy that lived an entire life and a full life. Like when has a when have you thought of like a genius that has had kids and a family and all that stuff? You know what I mean? Like when have you thought of someone that has a happy personal life? You usually don't see it from people that are outstanding. You usually see some weirdness, some bit of outcast in them. But Jung was like a fully functioning human being, and he really credits a lot of it to this book. But I'm so excited to read it, if you can tell.
Way underneath the social structures and look at patterns that are developing across, in Jung's case, across thousands of years and lays them out. And so he wrote these books, notebooks that haven't been published yet, called the Black Books. And the Black Books are the documentation of his experiments with his imagination. And what he would do is daydream, like a child daydreams.
He calls this active
He had
imagination.
figures of imagination that came to him that he could speak with. And he spoke with these figures of imagination and documented that over a very long period of time. And that was eventually distilled into a book called The Red Book, which was published about.
It was never really meant to be published. Um, and he really, while he was alive, he only let a handful of people actually read it. And if you were one of the people selected, it meant he really trusted you. Um, when did you, I don't know when Jung died. 61. So he died in 61, and the book wasn't published until 2009. And usually, when there's like a great author, someone that is very distinguished, and something isn't published till after their death, it's generally because it's something that's going to damage their reputation, something that might change the way people view them. Napoleon Hill had a similar book. It was called Outwitting the Devil, and it was basically his conversation with the devil, and he refused to have it published until way, way, way after his death. I know James Joyce did this as well. Numerous other authors have waited for stuff to, I mean, Kafka, most of his stuff was published after he died. It's very weird how like authors can die, but then it makes their art so, so, so much more inspiring. Who is it? Van Gogh. Van Gogh is the one that chopped his ear off. He couldn't even give his paintings away to people. He was trying to paint for people. He would give them out as gifts, and everyone's like, I don't want this fucking shit. And meanwhile, like, fast forward like 20, 30 years, however long, until he died, like, immediately they start being sold for millions of dollars. It's so funny. Like, imagine turning down a Van Gogh painting for free. That's like, you just got rid of generational wealth right there.
3 or 4 years ago. And it was a book that Jung regarded as the central source from which all his inspiration emerged. It was sort of, the way it looks to me is that we embody a lot of information in our action, right? And our action has developed as a consequence of imitating other people. And not only the people around us, but of course the people around us imitated the people who came before them, and those people imitated the people who came before them.
Like, did Jordan Peterson get like a hair transplant or something?
And so on, so far back that
I feel like I have to
it's
do
as
the
far
same
back
thing,
as you
right?
can go. And so
But I
you
haven't been
embody
reading the
these
chat. Thank
patterns
God no
of
one's saying.
behavior that are extremely
What's up,
informative,
Dario?
that you don't understand, that are a consequence of collective imitation across the
My bad. I didn't have
centuries.
the
And
chat
so
pulled up.
then those patterns can become manifest as figures of the imagination. And those figures of imagination are the distillations of patterns of behavior.
So this is something that even Crowley's recognized. If you don't know Aleister Crowley, I'll talk about him at some point in the future. But anytime we see like ghosts, we see demons, we see these things, like it's really just depending on how you want to view it. Most people view it as just a figment of your imagination, and it's there for a reason. And this is basically what Jung is running into. He's running into these, images, these archetypes, these entities that are basically there, and he doesn't know why they're there. And he made it a point of asking them why they were there every time they appeared to him. I'm just so excited to read this book.
And so, as the distillations of patterns of behavior, they have content. And it's not you, that content. You could even think about it as content that's evolved, although
You
it's
love Crowley.
culturally transmitted. It's content
I
that's evolved.
I had like such a negative view of him. I don't know enough about him to come to an assumption, but I just assume because most of the stuff you hear about him is like so 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 negative, and maybe rightfully so. Again, I have to do my own research, but the reason is so funny because like he had such a wicked sense of humor that he'd be like, "Yeah, I am the devil. Yeah, I am evil." It's like it's kind of funny, but I listened to what's his name, Robert Anton Wilson talk about him, and it was super interesting. So that's something I just haven't like. I'll eventually delve into it. I find all that kind of stuff interesting, so at the very least, I'll know a little bit more. But yeah, when you think about it in terms of altering states of consciousness, it makes a lot more sense than what people, describe it to be. And basically, what I figured out recently was this is what this one guy says. Again, I can't verify it, but he was saying that the reason why Crowley's viewed so negatively is because his enemies started writing stuff about him after he died, and not his friends yet. Um, Again, I don't know if this is true. It's just different perspective that I wasn't opening myself up to, and maybe I find something interesting.
Evolved. And so these figures of the imagination can reveal the structure of reality to you. And that's what happened with Jung, and that's what he described in the Red Book, and that was what permeated his psychology, a psychology that was based on the presupposition that the fundamental archetypal structures of religious belief were not pathological, not deceitful, not protective in some delusional sense against the fear of death, but quite the contrary. The very stories that enabled us to move forward as confident human beings in the face of
Talks about unconditional love. Yeah, yeah. I feel like it kind of backfired in a certain sense because a lot of people were turned off by it. But I mean, I guess that's the point of it. I mean, it's like the same thing as like Osho calling himself Bhagwan. Um, he was calling himself God so that he would see who actually cared about him and who was just going to get angered by the idea of him calling himself God. That's what he says it to be, but I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, Crowley, like when you look at it, you're just like, he's one of those people where you're like, how is this guy this successful? It's just so funny. Like, what did he do aside from being like a self-proclaimed? I don't know if he called himself this, but like a black magician is what he's known as. It's just so funny. He wasn't a Satanist, yeah. Well, wasn't he like an atheist? He said. I don't know. Again, he contradicts himself so much purposely. I don't know enough to really talk about it, but
chaos itself. And it's conceivable, I think, perhaps probable, that nothing more important conceptually happened in the 20th century than that.
that was an interesting video. What is this one? Yeah, no, I need to like I was just hearing that because what I've heard so far is that like I've heard all the negative stuff and then I hear one guy that's like very that I respect a lot, like talking positively about him. And like it's like, damn, I actually have to go research this. I thought I like knew everything about this guy. Clearly I didn't, but yeah. I mean I could still be wrong, but I just think it'd be it's like everything. Like until you explore it yourself, you can't really make any judgments. That's something that I feel like I need to start accepting more and more every single day.
In this video, we'll cover psychologist Carl Jung's legendary Red Book, which chronicles the search for his lost soul through vivid confrontations with his unconscious mind. Almost a century after its conception, and after years of negotiations with Jung's estate for its publication, Red Book editor Sanyu Shamdasani
No,
summarizes
I
the book.
don't.
The overall theme of the book is how Jung regains his soul and overcomes the contemporary malaise.
I mean, I meditated. Does that count? Depends what you consider. If you go with Manly P. Hall's definition, then yes, because anytime you um, speak, you're basically practicing magic. But it depends on the definition.
Of spiritual alienation. This is ultimately achieved through enabling the rebirth of a new image of God in his soul and developing a new worldview in the form of a psychological and theological cosmology. I know that's a lot to unpack, and we won't get to every last detail. My intention is to provide you with a primer for the work as a whole,
No, you're
to
good.
impart
You're
on
good.
you its importance, its main themes, and
I mean, that's what the entire Red Book's about, really. It's about like Jung confronting his, I don't know if you want to call it outside entities or, you know, internal archetypal images that are appearing to him. I mean, these are just fun topics to speculate about, whether you believe it's outside yourself or internal.
plant a seed of interest for you to get this book, The Holy Grail of the Unconscious, in your
Yeah.
own hands.
Was it mainly P. Hall said something like magic is just the manipulation of unseen forces, so something along the lines of that. So, I mean, like, think if you say the wrong word to someone, it pisses them off. Was that not you casting a spell? Is that not you in some way manipulating some part of their brain? So, I mean, again, it's the definition. It's like I don't fucking cast a wand and point it at people, but um, I think on a low level, we all like have certain control of our environment, and to say that we're not all under this definition practicing it, I think is. But even if you look at like alchemy, all alchemy is raising your state of consciousness. So anytime you visualize, anytime you meditate, anytime you balance your chakras, this could be considered magic. It's a magical practice. So it's like I just think the word is like people do it every day. It's like
For those unacquainted, Carl Jung was a massively influential Swiss psychiatrist in the first half of the 20th century. He
this
was the
seems
founder
like too informative. Not that this isn't good. This is something that like I'll watch myself, but on stream it's gonna be boring.
Is the last work undertaken by Carl Jung before his death in 1961. He had never tried to popularize his work and refused several attempts by his colleagues to persuade him to do so. At this moment, he had a dream.
Okay. And these videos are quite like I want.
This after-school presentation was written and recorded by
Mm,
Man and His Symbols is the last work undertaken by Carl Jung before his death.
Damn it, I wanted to talk about Jung today. This seems
Everyone
like a good
carries
video.
a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. If
Okay,
an
that's
inferiority is
good.
conscious, one always has a chance to correct it. But if it is repressed and isolated from consciousness, it never gets corrected, and is liable to burst forth suddenly.
This is one of the most important ideas you'll ever face. There's parts of ourselves that lie dormant. There's parts of ourselves that want to be expressed that are never expressed. Um, think about a dream you've always had. Think about you wanting to live somewhere. Think about you wanting to do something specific. And you always say, I'll do it later. I'll do this later. I'll do this later. And eventually that just gets pushed down, pushed down, pushed down, and then it expresses in some negative way. Generally, like the example I go to, you're just thinking about reading this, the Red Book. Dude, I'm so excited to read this. I just keep picking this up and I'm like, I need to finish the book I'm reading right now. I'm currently reading Walden and I have like, I want to say like 70, 80 pages left. So within the next like day or so, I'll start reading this, but I'm so excited. I've read a lot of his other stuff. Um, Psychology and Alchemy was my favorite so far, I want to say, simply because just alchemy is probably the coolest concept ever. And like literally everything that we see around us, anything that involves calculus or physics, derived from alchemy because Sir Isaac Newton literally wrote just as much about alchemy as he did science. It's it's so crazy. A little high level for you. I mean, the thing about Jung is like it's it's one of those things that the more you read, the easier it gets. Like he goes all over the place and he talks about concepts that um you might not be super familiar with, but you'll start to understand, and then you read another book, and then you see it again, and you see it in a different way, and then you understand it even better. Someone else's work on Jung? No, so start with this book. So this book, Man and His Symbols, I have it somewhere back there. I just don't know where. Um, Basically, Man and His Symbols was a book that was written for the purpose of going to the largest audience possible. The inspiration for this book was that Jung did an interview with some journalist, and he basically tried to break down his ideas in a very simple way. And this interview did so well, and Jung was pitched the idea of writing this book, and he was like, "I don't want to do this." But then he got so many emails, or this is 64. It wasn't emails, it was letters. I'm really aging myself. he was getting a lot of letters saying like, wow, this idea really changed my life. Like, is there any easy way to understand like your more complex issues, your more complex ideas? And basically this is the book that resulted out of it. And only the first part is written by Jung himself. The rest of it is written by, I think it's the first part's written by him. He writes only one part, but the rest of it's written by his students, and it explores all of the ideas and like the bare bones of them. And it's really, really good at getting your introduction to Jung. Well, how it's this is another good one. This one's like 100 pages. This is another book Jung wrote very close to his death, and it's very simple. It talks about the individual and how society affects the individual and how it takes you away from your true self. And when you're away from your true self, this is where you develop depression, anxiety, all these other issues. And it's about finding a way to integrate your real self into the self that's present right now, and then finding happiness through that. I mean, I'm vastly oversimplifying these ideas, and for me, Jung is more of a philosopher than he is a psychologist. But yeah, you started reading Jung with the Red Book. I mean, dude, I honestly wish I started reading Jung with the Red Book. I think this was the first one I read by Jung, and then after that, I started reading Psychology and Alchemy, which I don't suggest reading right away because um, it's just it's not that it's not exciting. It's not that you won't learn from it. It's just it's like so different from anything else you've ever read. It's very, very interesting style. Is King Warrior Magician Lover, is that a good book? I've heard a lot of people tell me to read it. Um, you're the deciding factor if I read it or not. Let's hear your synopsis. Oh yeah, Jung has a book on synchronicity too. That's very good. Very, very interesting. That idea is like scary, Jung's conception of synchronicity. It's like your gut feeling is always correct, even if it's not correct now. So it's like you could have a gut feeling that something is happening, some friend is betraying you, your girlfriend's doing something behind your back, but it might not be true now, but it could be true in the future. And it's only after the fact that you can recognize the signs. It's so crazy. He's like one of the only like I guess William James. I haven't read enough William James to know. I know like what his ideas are in a general sense, but I haven't personally read any of him. But he's one of the only like pure scientific minds to really recognize the more fantastical elements of humans. Like, I mean, when you deal with Nietzsche, when you deal with most philosophers, especially atheist philosophers, they don't really um, incorporate the idea of faith. They don't understand how powerful these forces are. They don't understand, like, think of any great monument, think of any great work of art. It's generally somewhat religion based, somewhat based on the afterlife. Like, I mean, depending what you believe the Great Pyramids are, like we'll just take the History Channel's idea that it's a tomb. We can speculate about other things, but like most of these things are inspired by some sort of religious observation. Have you experienced any meaningful synchronicities in your life? Um, I get like crazy ones all the time. I'm trying to think though. Not any that like stick. No, okay. This is a cool one. Actually, it's not cool because of the story. But when I was like 8 or 9, I remember like I was like, oh, this is what it would feel like to break my wrist. And I was like imagining the sensation. And then when I was like 13 or 14, I broke my wrist. It's like it felt exactly the same too, like how I perceive it in my mind. It's so weird. What's up, Fluffy Kitty? Have you ever had anything like that, Daria? I think synchronicity is like one of the cooler ideas. Um, wait, do I not have the? Oh my God, I didn't even realize. Damn it. Dude, I'm literally the worst streamer ever. You guys didn't see that, did you? I hope you didn't. I'm like so embarrassed right now. What give me your coolest synchronicity. Let's hear what it is. I'm interested now. Should we watch a video on let's find a shorter video. Why are these all so long? It's not a video. I don't want that one. You didn't see it? Okay, look at the screen. Before it was literally just my face and I thought I had the videos pulled up. That's what it was. I just felt like such an idiot. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like there was like a million people. If there was like a lot more people here, I think it'd be a. All right, we'll watch this.
I was always looking for something in between, something that linked that remote past with the present moment. And I found, to my amazement, it is alchemy.
Jung's early realization of his own consciousness sets the stage for his lifelong exploration of the mind. Never do human beings speculate more or have more opinions than about things which they do not understand. From his
That's such a good quote. Damn it, I can't find it. Never do human beings speculate more or have more opinions than about things which they do not understand.
things which they do not understand.
Bro, I
From
love
his
Jung, of
childhood,
course.
Carl Jung experienced strange and seemingly
I'm so
unexplainable
excited.
phenomena. He feared that he was going
I keep
mad
just picking
and
up
went
this
on the
book waiting
quest
to
to
read it.
discover what they meant. I saw yellow waves, swimming rubble, and the death of countless thousands. 2 weeks passed, then the vision
boy is the father
returned,
to
still
me.
more violent than before, and an inner voice spoke. Look at it. It is completely real.
What do you mean like archetypes? Like, is it like Jungian archetypes where it's like archetypal images that are affected by certain things, or is it just people fit into these categories? Wait, let's run there.
And it will come to pass. You cannot doubt this. Jung had these vivid visions just before the First World War broke out. When this happened, he was sure that no schizophrenia was threatening him. He understood that his dreams and visions came to him from the subsoil of the collective unconscious. Jung's visions continued into adulthood.
Imagine someone's just like, you're crazy, you need to be institutionalized, and we just don't get it. That's the sad thing.
Providing eerie premonitions that aligned with significant historical events.
As far as I can remember, nothing had happened before that would explain this sudden coming to consciousness.
You hadn't, for instance, been quarreling with your parents or anything?
No.
What memories have you of your parents? Were they strict and old-fashioned in the way they brought you up?
Oh, well, they belonged to the later parts of the Middle Ages. And my father was a pastor.
Jung's father was, oh wait, he's about to say it, but he was a pastor, and basically his father like started to grow out of the faith. So like it really messed up Jung's conception of religion, of God, of all these things. These were ideas he always quarreled with. He always knew there was something more. He always knew there was something deeper, and he couldn't quite pit these feelings of wanting to be religious with his doubts. And eventually he overcame it. Eventually he did triumph through it, but he was very troubled when he was growing up. These were like things that he would always think about.
In the country, and
How old am I?
and you can imagine they.
I didn't know my first name.
Well,
What?
then, in the 70s of the past century,
What?
they had the convictions
Oh,
in
my God.
which people
Yeah,
have
I
lived
did
since
this.
1,800 years.
Jung's upbringing and environment also played crucial roles in shaping his perspectives on consciousness and reality. For Jung, the pressing question was, how are such meaningful events, not linked by any apparent causal chains, possible? What does this say about the physical universe? These were surprising juxtapositions that scientific rationality could not adequately explain. Jung's ideas intersect intriguingly with modern scientific discoveries, such as the principles observed in quantum physics. The double-slit experiment in quantum physics demonstrates that particles can behave differently depending on whether they are observed. This shows that our observation has a direct impact on
Pretty sure Einstein discovered this. He discovered that light was like a particle in a wave,
reality, supporting the idea that synchronicities
or he
are a
theorized it.
profound
I don't
interaction
think it was
between our
discovered
consciousness
till
and
way
the
later.
physical world. These concepts aren't just theoretical. They can manifest in our daily lives.
If you look into Einstein, though, and his creative process, it was very much based on like pure intuition. A lot of his discoveries, like he came to through very very weird means. Like possibly his one of his greatest discoveries was this theory of relativity, the special theory of relativity in specific. I think he came up with while he was playing with bubbles in a bubble bath. Like um when we think about like intelligence, a lot of people think it's like purely, how you can memorize purely all of these things, but there's also like the pure spontaneous creativity that just certain people were blessed with. I mean, you look at the inventions of Tesla, you look at the inventions of Einstein, like that's not something anyone could replicate in any amount of time. You give someone a book to study, they will never be able to do it. It's just somewhere, somehow along the way, the dots just got connected, and they're like, "Oh, it's this simple." It's always like very weird to observe like great minds like those people and see that they were more creative, they were more artistic than they were thinkers.
Lives through meaningful coincidences. Let's say you're feeling stuck in your job and unsure about your future career path. One weekend, you attend a community event out of curiosity. While there, you meet a speaker who talks passionately about their journey of changing careers and following their dreams. Inspired by their story, you strike up a conversation with them after the talk. This connection leads to a mentorship, providing you with the guidance and encouragement you need to pursue your own passions and make a successful career change. As you delve deeper into the realms of psychology and personal transformation, you discover that even renowned figures like Carl Jung had their own experiences.
Some people believe that it's our subconscious telling us trying it's our subconscious trying to tell us something, and it's our subconscious trying to point us in the right direction. And this goes into like law of assumption, law of attraction stuff, where it's like you can impress your subconscious, and then all of a sudden you get the magical idea that's going to create whatever you want. Whether you believe this is true or not, I mean, it's up in the air. I mean, it'll never be proven 100%, but there are fantastical stories throughout time of the power of belief. So,
With the extraordinary. As a youth, Jung not only experienced unusual visions, but also events that could not be explained in any manner. During the summer holidays, Jung was studying his textbooks and heard a sound like a pistol shot. He rushed to the room and saw that a solid table
this
had
is such a
split
weird
from the
story.
rim to beyond the center. Some 2 weeks later, he heard another sound. This time he saw that inside a cupboard.
Your tarot reader cards are always yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can always find some truth in like those old symbols. It's very weird to me that people believed in this stuff for thousands of years, and now we just disregard it as pure nonsense. It's like maybe the people that built the pyramid were obsessed with the stars for a reason. Maybe it gave you some insight about yourself. Maybe it gave you some insight about what would bring you the most happiness in life or what your destiny was. I mean, when it gets like people like, saying I'm going to be this because I was born on this day, like then we get a little obsessive, but I think it can really tell you a lot about who you are internally.
The bread knife, which had been used shortly before, had been snapped off in several pieces. These inexplicable events sparked Jung's fascination with the unknown, driving him to explore the depths of the human psyche and the mysteries of the supernatural. Jung finished his medical studies and became a psychiatrist. During this time, he attended seances for communicating with the dead and had an interest in parapsychology and the occult, mainly due to his own personal experiences. This formed the basis of his medical dissertation, published in 1902.
I feel like the only reason that it would ever explain it though is if someone spends enough money on it. That's the thing. I feel like you can prove a lot of these concepts. You can prove the law of attraction, law of assumption, stuff like that. But who's going to put money into it? You know what I mean? Like who's going to put money into how your mind can heal your body if they can't sell you a pill? You know what I mean? It's like think of how many people just refuse to believe what their doctors told them. I'm not telling you to do this. This is not medical advice, but we've all heard stories of someone with a terminal illness that just refuses to give up and they somehow make it through, even though modern medicine said it was impossible. Like, I just don't think these avenues will ever be explored because there's no money to be made out of them. That's the sad thing. And even if you look at like the older societies, they might have not been as technologically advanced. Some people would argue that they were, but I don't think this is the case. I just think they had access to their higher faculties. I think they had access to their creativity. They could pull from the collective unconscious way easier than we could, and their attention wasn't stolen like it is ours. I mean, right now you guys are literally wasting your night watching me. I hope not. I'm having fun. I hope you guys are having fun too. But like literally, like think of how many times you checked your phone today. Think of how many times you distracted yourself. Think of how much nonsense conversations you heard around you. Like these just weren't things that old old minds experienced. People like Socrates or Plato or any of these philosophers. Like, how do you think they came up with any of the discoveries they came up with? It's because they had all fucking day to just think. They had all day to just put their mind to something and figure it out. When was the last time you thought about something for like an hour straight? I can't tell you the last time I've done it. Maybe if I went on a 2 hour walk, I've thought about something for an hour straight. That would be the last time. And it's like, I don't, I don't know why anyone is surprised where they're not where they want to be when they haven't put all day of their attention into it. Like if you literally spend an entire day fixated on a singular idea, I guarantee you would solve it. Now, no one's going to do this, so we'll never get our proof of it, but it's just the mind is so powerful. The mind has every answer. You just have to look hard enough and, there's just something that's not going to happen in the modern day and age.
Entitled On the Psychology and Pathology of So-Called Occult
I have
Phenomena,
this
a
book.
Psychiatric Study. The connection between our perception and reality is echoed in the
I
words
haven't
of
read it yet.
prominent physicists like Niels Bohr.
I
Everything we
probably
call
should though. It's
real
only
is made of things that cannot be regarded as real.
yeah, it's only
This
100 pages. I should
highlights
really read
how
it.
our perception shapes
That'll take
reality,
like a day to read.
aligning with the concept of synchronicities. On one occasion, Jung was having a conversation with Freud about parapsychology. Freud, in his materialism, rejected most.
Jung and Freud, it's very weird because Freud really wanted Jung to carry the mantle, but Freud wasn't concerned about healing people. He was concerned about his reputation. He would rather be wrong and be respected than be proven. I mean, he'd rather be right and respected than wrong and have the field of psychology improve, which is kind of sad to see. Damn, I'm glad I got a good reading. Yeah, like the honestly, the only thing keeping me going is my sense of faith. Um, that's one thing I've always been blessed with. I've always had the idea somewhere that things are gonna get better, no matter what happens to me, no matter how many setbacks. Like I just know if I keep going, things are gonna be perfect. So that's very weird. But yeah, Young he really respected Freud, but he saw a few things that he disagreed with Freud on, and Freud wasn't willing to admit being wrong. And Freud was basically having this dream that he was interpreting that Jung wanted to kill him or something, but it was something to do with his family. I can't remember the exact dream, but I wish I could because it would be interesting. But basically, Freud thought that Jung wanted to kill him or take over his mantle, so he became very paranoid about this. There's this whole feud. It's very weird when you look into it, but Freud was like, no, or Jung said to Freud, like, I can interpret this dream for you. You just need to give me more information. He's like, that will jeopardize my position. I can't do that. So it's kind of sad. But yeah, I have a where is it? It's actually over there. Wait, no, it's right here. I have a book by Freud that I've been meaning to read forever. Dude, I have so many books that I just randomly can pull from. I just don't read them. It's so frustrating having like books where I'm like, oh yeah, I have this book, but I haven't read it yet. I wish I like knew what it was about so I could talk about it. But
Of Jung's questions as nonsensical. Jung had a strange sensation, as if his diaphragm were made of iron and were becoming red hot. At that moment there was a loud noise in the bookcase, which stood right next to them, that both of them stood up in alarm, fearing the thing was going to topple over them. Jung told him, "There, that is an example of so-called catalytic exteriorization phenomenon." Freud replied that it was sheer bosh. Jung replied that it was not, and to prove his point, he predicted that in a moment there will be another such loud noise. Another detonation went off in the bookcase.
dude, if someone did that in front of me, I'd be like, all right, I'll listen to whatever they're fucking saying to me. Imagine like seeing some shit like that and not believing. That's kind of funny to me. Just shows you how stubborn Freud was.
Jung wrote in his autobiographical work, Memories, Dreams, Reflections.
This
To
is
this
this
day,
is let me see if I can pull it up. So this Memory, Dreams, and Reflections, if you haven't read any Jung, this is another really good book to start with because it's autobiographical and parts of it he writes, parts of it is written by um, Amelia Jaffe, I think that's how you say it. But basically it's him like analyzing his childhood and analyzing how he kind of overcame some of these things and how some of these things like plagued him. And it's really interesting because it's the greatest psychologist who ever lived psychoanalyzing himself. And it's like that's such a valuable resource. It's really, really interesting and it gives you a lot of background on like how you could do this in your own life. You'll start to recognize a lot of things. But this, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Man and His Symbols, and The Undiscovered Self are like the easiest books of him to read, probably. I think if you start with any of those, they're going to be pretty good.
his dreams, reflections. To this day, I do not know what gave me this certainty, but I knew beyond all doubt that the report would come again. Freud only stared aghast at me. I do not know what was in his mind or what his look meant. Jung's dialogues with contemporaries like Freud often highlighted their differing views on the nature of the psyche.
Oh, well, I just paid a visit to him in Vienna, and then we talked for 13 hours without interruption.
13 hours
For
without
13
interruption.
What the fuck could you talk to someone about for 13 straight hours? Like, can you just imagine being like, whatever maid, whatever secretary had to just be like, you guys are right. You guys need like, what do you even do? This is,
hours without interruption. We didn't realize that we were almost dead at the end of it, but it was tremendously interesting. He was the old man and had a great experience, and he was, of course, way ahead of me, and so I settled down to learn something first.
In 1928, when Jung was drawing the mandalas present in his Red Book, the sinologist
mandalas are a very interesting idea. Basically, it's oh my God, I can't, it wasn't long enough. All right, it's about to explain it anyway.
In 1928, when Jung was drawing
So
the
this symbol
mandalas
right here
present in his
recurs
Red
in
Book,
every
the
single culture.
sinologist Richard Wilhelm sent him a copy of The Secret of the Golden Flower, a Taoist alchemical book of life that teaches an ancient Chinese meditation practice for achieving wholeness. Jung was struck by the parallelism between the Chinese mandala and the one he was working on, and he immediately devoured the book. In remembrance of this event, he wrote under his mandala, "In 1928, when I was painting this picture, showing the golden, well-fortified castle, Richard Wilhelm in Frankfurt sent me the 1,000-year-old Chinese text on the yellow castle, the germ of the immortal body." Jung's work with mandalas and his interest in Eastern philosophy.
In Psychology and Alchemy, he talks about this for um, a lot of time. But basically, what this does is it expresses creativity in a way that doesn't have rigid edges. I know I did a terrible job, like rigid edges. Like think of like a normal sheet of paper, think of a normal canvas. It's square, and your mind doesn't really like square things. It likes to flow. It likes to be in all these different shapes. It doesn't like the rigidity. So it basically allows you to express whatever image that you want to in a manner that is symmetrical and that is open, that is not restrictive in any way. I've heard somewhere people like cutting out circles and writing affirmations on them simply because it's more pleasing to your subconscious. Pythagoras, this is a really interesting idea. If you don't know anything about Pythagoras, you know about the triangle stuff, the Pythagorean theorem, but Pythagoras was also like a philosopher. He had his own cult. He almost had like a Jesus birth story. Like some prophet told his father that his son was going to be the greatest man to ever live, or something. There's very interesting lore behind him, but basically, he had a healing cult as well, and he would like to sick people. He would show them either rigid or spherical or geometric objects to basically somehow impress their subconscious with the idea of rigidity or the idea of a sphere, and it's apparently it worked. I don't know how much credit I give to it, but uh, there is. I mean, think of like looking at a piece of architecture that was built a few hundred years ago. Think about looking at a Capitol building. Like, it is just pleasing to the eye. It is inspirational. So maybe there's something to it.
Further illustrate his quest for understanding the interconnectedness of
Like, if you don't believe in the significance of shapes or the significance of images, think of what a word is. Think of what you hear. Like, it's an image somewhere in your brain. Somewhere you're seeing. Like, if I say apple, you picture an apple. Like, you know what an apple is simply by the word, but the word turns into an image when it hits your brain. So basically, it's just how these hit a whole school or something where people couldn't speak for like a year. That's so interesting. I believe it though.
all things.
He has some quote about listening. It's like I can't remember exactly what it is, but I know he has a famous quote about listening that is attributed to him. Who knows if it was him? But yeah, all those like ancient mystery schools, all those ancient like Plato's school, Socrates' school, Aristotle's school, Pythagoras' school, they all had their own schools, and like they had weird rules to try to like teach you the rules, try to show you the ropes, and like in some way take you out of what society had made you to be and make you into someone else. Very weird how parallels alchemy. We're coming full circle here.
I had written that book that cost me my friendship with Freud because he couldn't accept it. Yes. To him, the unconscious was a product of consciousness. Yes. And it simply contained the remnants. I mean, it was sort of storeroom where all the discarded things of consciousness were heaped up and left. And but to me, the unconscious then was already a matrix, a sort of basis of consciousness of a creative nature, namely capable of autonomous acts.
At the heart of Jung's theory lies the concept of archetypes, fundamental patterns influencing both our psyche.
Archetypes are so interesting. What's up? What's up, Ali? Or Ali Nam? I'm not sure. Not sure what to say.
And the physical world. This was a decisive point in Jung's life. where his writings shifted to a focus on the psychological significance of alchemy. He wrote that from Wilhelm, the spark leapt across and kindled a light that was to become for me one of the most significant events of my life. Indeed, I feel myself so very much enriched by him that it seems to me as if I had received more from him than from any other man.
I'm not sure if he's going to talk about it, but everyone perceives alchemy to be the transmutation of lead into gold. That is pure allegory so that the old alchemists wouldn't be basically killed by the church. They steeped a lot of their teachings in the idea that it was just turning metals into different metals, but it was about the transmutation of your soul into a higher state of consciousness, taking yourself from where you are today and building yourself into who you want to be. And it's really rivaled in any sort of like whether it's Rosicrucians, whether it's Freemasonry, whether it's whatever fucking secret society, it's all just alchemy. It's the same thing as ancient Egyptian. It's the same thing as the Greeks were doing. It's the same thing as the East. Like it's really all the same when you break down all of these older teachings. It's really just about elevating your consciousness. Even Crowley was just it's very similar.
Jung was particularly struck by a drawing of a yogi with 5 human figures growing out of the top of his head and 5 more figures growing out of the top of each of their heads. The picture, thought Jung, portrays the spiritual state of the yogi who is about to rid himself of his many egos and pass into the more complete objective state of the self. Carl Gustav Jung's exploration of synchronicity ultimately leads to the profound idea of a unified reality, the unus mundus. Jung coined the term synchronicity and mentions it publicly for the first time in 1930 in his memorial address for Richard Wilhelm, who also translated the I Ching, or Book of Changes, from Chinese into German.
This is something I have to read at some point. I want to read like all those older Eastern ideas because they're just so interesting. I mean, Taoism is one of the deepest philosophies you'll ever read. If you read anything of Emerson, if you read anything of Thoreau, um, basically any sort of person that pushes individualism, it's literally just Taoism. I don't know who that is. Who's Mahavatar? I don't know who that is. What's the I? What is this? I've heard of this. I just don't know what it is. Explain it to me. If you do a bad job, I'll never read it. No pressure.
He referred to it as a peculiar principle active in the world so that things happen together somehow and behave as if they were the same, and yet for us they are not.
One thing is
There's an interesting idea about synchronicities in God. One of the one of the ideas is that like we see the world as pure chaos, like things happen and they don't make any sense, but things are happening on such a grand scale that we can't perceive. This is not from this is from Kabbalion. I just remembered it. But basically things are working in perfect order and we just don't see it because we don't see the balance on the grand scale that is actually happening. Like if something bad happens to you, that means if something good doesn't happen to you, then that means the good happened to someone else. Very interesting. He's a yogi that is thousands of years old. Wait, he's still alive? What? What are you talking about? I'm confused. Like the way you said it, he's still he lives. Is he still alive or was it from a while ago?
sure a great change of our psychological attitude is imminent. That is certain.
Why?
Because we need more. We need more psychology.
Basically throwing coins for divination. Okay, yeah, I'll probably like it then. I like all that kind of stuff. Honestly, anything I really haven't explored, any idea that's new and that's exciting, I'll like. I mean, I even like reading stuff I don't like. Like I read Nietzsche, like you know what I mean? So it's like I like to expose myself to all ideas possible.
We need more understanding of human nature because the only real danger that exists is man himself.
Damn.
He is the great danger.
Transcending
And
his
we
physical
are
body.
pitifully unaware
Wait,
of
what?
it.
I'm so confused.
We know
I'm so wait, like is his spirit around or something? I'm like, or is it like what is it? The Count of Saints Germany. Is it like this, like a legend of someone who never died? This guy supposedly found the Philosopher's Stone, which it's inside of you. It's not, you don't have to find anything. But basically, this guy was cited for centuries. Well, I don't know. I was trying to hear him out. I don't know if he's talking about the spirit. Stumbled upon this, never got to read it. Dude, I'm literally about to pick it up within the next 2 days. I really have to start researching it because I'm getting so excited about it. Um, but I cannot wait because the parts of Jung that I like are the more mystical elements, the more um weirder elements. So yeah, maybe the Eastern Indian version. Yeah, yeah. I could see that. A lot of the I mean, even if you look into like the occult practices in the West, it's literally just they took it from the East. It's so funny. Like Pythagoras was trained by the people in India, I think. Same thing as Plato, same thing as Solon, something, same thing as Socrates. Basically, all the great ideas always came from the East. Even if you look at Alan Watts is, you know, everyone loves Alan Watts, everyone loves listening to his speeches, but he basically just took Taoism and spoke about it in a Western oriented mind. I read of a Chinese man who lived 200 years or something. I mean, I could see it. Like, I think if you like live extremely stress free, if you don't have any sort of like issues, if you literally become a Taoist and you live a perfect life, you could probably live up for hundreds of years. I just think it's like our stress and the other stuff that we put into our lives. It's just kind of unavoidable. But yeah, there's some deep Eastern mysticism. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard stuff like that. Jesus went to the East. Bro, just call me Bino. Like, I don't know how you know that. I'm scared.
nothing of man, far too little. His psyche should be studied because we are the origin of all coming evil.
We are the origin of all coming evil. I think one of Jung's greatest ideas is any sort of external aggression is internal aggression misplaced. Like a healthy psyche, a healthy mind doesn't need to go judge people, it doesn't need to go insult people, it doesn't need to go attack people. When you're good with yourself, you're gonna stay to yourself. I mean, you're gonna have friends and shit like that, but you're not gonna go out of your way to ruin someone else's day. And such a very interesting concept. And this is something that I really had to reflect on for a while because, like, I don't know, like I would see myself judging people for no reason. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why am I judging people? Like, I don't need to do this. Like, I should be happy doing the stuff I'm doing. You know what I mean? The spirit of Saint. Well, it's not Saint Germain. It's Saint Germain. Come on. This is he's in I think he's in the 48 Laws of Power. One of the chapters is about him being like a huckster, and I'm like, wow, Robert Greene really didn't get this story. Um, I don't even know if this is a real person. I don't know if this is even documented, but this is like one of the cases of someone that supposedly found the Philosopher's Stone. Can't believe you, Dario. How could you?
By studying the psyche and understanding our inner world, we can begin to grasp the true nature of synchronicity and its implications.
Man's soul is a complicated thing, and it takes sometimes half a lifetime to get somewhere in one's psychological
Who cherry picked for that book? What are you talking about?
development. You know, it is by no means always matter of
Oh, for the video, yeah.
psychotherapy or treatment of neuroses. It, it, it is all psychology has also the aspect of a pedagogical method in the widest sense of the word. It is something. Education. It is an education. It is something like antique philosophy, and not what we.
When you're watching these videos, you're like, I can't believe I used to be so impressed by Jordan Peterson back in the day. Like, this is the real master at work. Yeah, yeah. I think 48 Laws of Power is an interesting book, but if you've read The Prince, if you've read The Art of War, if you've read like Jung or Nietzsche, like the ideas really aren't that complex. But the thing I do commend about it is that the stories he uses from history are so fucking cool. Like I really can't hate on him because I don't like reading history. Like I don't like I'm not gonna pick up this 800-page book on Napoleon. I just want to know about the badass shit he does. I don't want to have to read, oh, on this day he did this. So like I like how he mixes and matches the stories. It's very interesting, and it's really easy to do a chapter by chapter breakdown. That's like where a lot of the views on my channel are. um it's like a think it's a mass marketed book though. It's a book meant for a lot of people, and when you try to boil down more complex ideas, the more you try to sell it to more people, the dumber the ideas have to be. So I think Robert Greene is capable of writing something much, much more interesting. Like if you've read The Laws of Human Nature, that's a that's like a much more intellectual style of 48 Laws of Power. That's a really good book. Yeah, it is what it is, man. Like I just hate all the books that are so popular because I've read most of them, and I'm like, this shit is fucking terrible. Like it's so frustrating when you see like sold 20 million copies on the label of the book, and I'm like, this is not good. Like I've read 20 books this month that are better than this book, and everyone's like raving about this stuff. Sometimes I go into a bookstore and I see the books that are published. I literally just look at the cover and look at the title. I know my elementary school librarian would get pissed at me, but some of these books have no hope. Some of these books are just so fucking stupid. Like I can tell you there's not a shred of information in it that's gonna be useful. And I just get angry. I'm like, I need to write a book because this is ridiculous. Like if people that are writing this shit gets published, then I can get published so easy. But yeah, anyway, back
Understand by a technique. It is something that touches upon the whole of man, and which challenges also the whole of man.
Jung equated it with the Chinese concept of Tao, the union of opposites, from the complementary pairs of yin and yang. It is based on the oneness of man and the surrounding cosmos. This is akin to the Hermetic alchemical credo, as above, so
he simplified it so much.
below, referring to the inner world and outer world, the psyche and matter being one
That's
and
not what
the
it
same.
is.
The aim of the Taoist sage is to live in harmony with the Tao, avoiding extremes and achieving balance. This is, in fact, the goal.
I just don't want to spend 30 minutes correcting that, but we'll do that another day. That
Goal
just
of
pissed me off
Jungian
so much.
psychology, the balance of opposites, consciousness and the unconscious, is aligning the ego to the self as the center of the personality. Here, synchronicity plays a vital role. There is no linear evolution for individuation, self-realization. There is only a circumambulation, the circling around, in which everything is related to the center. This is represented by the symbol of the mandala. For Jung, finding one's own mandala symbol is crucial for the development of the self. For this circular movement to take place, the mandala must have a symbol such as the sun, a castle, or a golden flower in its center. It is a visual image of the divine pattern.
What the fuck is this? Like I'm liking this, and I
A
just see this guy just
manifestation
going.
of the self. The end result is the alchemical procedure, Mysterium Coniunctionis, which is also the title of Jung's last great work. The opposite sides of life are united in a holy marriage. There is a heightening and clearness of
This is the chemical wedding of Christian Rosicrucians, I think.
consciousness and a deepening sense of unity of being.
This is really oversimplifying it. This is the active mind. This is the subconscious mind, and the union creates the godly essence. If you look at, I don't feel like getting into Freemasonry. If you look at Freemasonry, I'm not even gonna do the symbol because then people are gonna call me this years later. It's the active passive. Same thing as the Star of David. It's the active passive. It's for lack of better words, you use your subconscious mind to impress your subconscious mind, and then your subconscious mind takes that idea and creates the reality. It's symbolic of your ability to transform your world. I don't know if I should say this
Jung
on
comments
live.
that Atman, Tao, and Christ are different cultural symbols for wholeness that correlate the inner self with the animating principle of the cosmos. It is no longer you who live, it lives you. The oracle of the I Ching played an important role in developing his idea of synchronicity. He used it with his patients in psychotherapy and could remember a great deal of meaningful answers and unusual psychological insights. For instance, he recalls the story of a patient suffering from a mother complex who feared his prospective marriage partner might be domineering. Jung opened the I Ching and it showed the hexagram 44, entitled Coming to Meet, which stated, "The maiden is powerful. One should not marry such a maiden." Jung's experiments demonstrated that there are meaningful connections between the psychic realm and the
Dude, he's just chilling here. This is actually Jung.
physical world. For more than 30 years, I have interested myself in this oracle technique, or method of exploring the unconscious, for it has seemed to me of uncommon significance. It relates to a certain curious principle that I have termed synchronicity, a concept that formulates a point of view
I think I really need to start writing down my dreams and analyzing them. Because I'll do it when I wake up and then I forget the dream. I really should keep a journal of it because I wonder, um, like if I could track the progress of my unconscious, the progress of the issues I'm dealing with, and how I'm addressing them. Maybe that'd be an interesting experiment. I'll learn at some point, man. I got too excited about Young. I'm gonna have to read this book now. I posted a video today, but I'm gonna do this new thing where I start like I'll have a stack of books. So like the next four books I read are gonna be these books in this order, and I can only do that. And I think that's gonna make me a lot more focused. Yeah, if I'm just so lazy to do this stuff. ChatGPT can give you some crazy analysis in this house. I bet it could. Dude, is it just me or did they nerf ChatGPT? Like, I want to say I used it a lot 2 years ago because I was writing code with it and it was like it was so good. It was so good. And then they must have updated it like a billion fucking times. And now it's like I can't even curse at it. I can't even call it an idiot. It gets mad at me and like it doesn't give you good code anymore. Like it seems like they just made it a lot stupider because it was almost too powerful, I guess. I mean, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, they're out to get you. Oh, like I'm not paranoid at all. I'm not one of those people that like, wears tinfoil to bed or anything. But like, they definitely ruined ChatGPT because it used to be so good, and now I try to generate stuff every once in a while. I'm like, this is fucking terrible. Like anyone that uses ChatGPT for a school assignment, like you're an idiot because you could do it 5 times better without even trying. They just made it so dumb. Are they forced you to get the $20 plan? Oh, okay, okay. Is the is it just a better version of it? What's the difference? Or is it you could just do more with it? Like, how would they even monetize that? I don't know. There's something interesting to look at.
Diametrically opposed to that of causality. Since the latter is a merely statistical truth and not absolute, it is a sort of working hypothesis of how events evolve one out of another, whereas synchronicity takes the coincidence of events in space and time as meaning something more than mere chance.
You know, there are these
Okay.
peculiar faculties of the psyche that it isn't entirely confined to space and time.
So I'm pretty sure this is an AI video right now. The narrator. It's okay, but you can always tell. That's the thing I don't like about it. Um, People are like AI is gonna get good enough at a certain point to like replace every single art, every single movie, and it's just like that's just not gonna happen. Maybe it can replace like the shitty fucking Marvel movies that are written by like 40 people trying not to offend a single person in the entire country. But I mean, tell an AI to recreate Taxi Driver, tell an AI to recreate The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I don't know any other movies off the top of my head that are that good. Maybe Inception, ideas that are just outside the box. The AI will never be able to do. Oh, okay, okay. That's crazy that they could just like take away its processing capabilities. I guess that's what it is, though. It runs at a lower um, processing rate and it doesn't have access to as much bandwidth or something. It has to be something like that. Thanks, Dario. I was talking about what's the difference. I get there's a monthly plan. Do I look that stupid? I know I look really stupid, but do I look that stupid? Thanks for letting
Time.
me know.
You can have dreams or visions of the future. You can see round corners and such things. Only ignorance deny these facts. It's quite evident that they do exist and have existed always. Now, these facts show that the psyche, in part at least, is not dependent upon these confinements. And then what? When the psyche is
You better
not
not think I'm stupid.
under that obligation to live in time and space alone, and obviously it doesn't, then to that extent, the psyche is not submitted to those laws. And that means a
Yeah, there
practical
we go.
um, in,
Oh, you asshole.
continuation
You did that on purpose. I know you did.
life, of a sort of psychical existence beyond time and space.
I could time you
Understanding
out
the
right now.
psyche's
No, I'm
freedom
just
from the
kidding.
constraints of time and space opens up new possibilities for
Only time out
experiencing
people when they're annoying.
synchronicity.
The archetype is a force, it has an autonomy. It can suddenly seize you. It is like a seizure.
Yes.
So, for instance, falling in love at first sight,
Yeah.
that is such a case. You see, you have a certain image in yourself without knowing it of the woman, of the woman.
He's talking about the animal right here. This is literally when I saw my girl. I only said that because I know she's mine. It's fine. I already told her that before.
Yes.
Now you see that girl, or at least a good imitation of your type, and instantly you get a seizure, and you're gone. And afterwards, you may discover that it was a hell of a mistake. And that is the archetype. That is the so-called archetype of the anima.
He's probably going to explain it, but the animus it's really just the traits that you have inside you that you don't express. And it's the traits you associate with the other gender. It's the same thing for women. It's called the animus, but I don't really understand it as much because I don't have this, but it's like a force that you always have to deal with. And it's a force that you can kind of judge if people have a good anima or not, because like if they have a good relationship with it, because the people that are just always angry, the people that always like when they're in a relationship and things break down, like, oh my God, she was this, she was that, like that's someone without a good relationship with an animal. Go to book sale tomorrow. The library. Yeah, what kind of stuff do you like to read? I'll give you a few things. Um, Honestly, look for anything Jung. Everything Jung is really good. Um, I like Emerson. I'm reading Walden right now. It's a really, really good book. Um, what do I have around me? Have you ever read Kafka? If you haven't read Kafka, look for The Trial. Or honestly, anything by him is great, but The Trial is his best work. Uh, Anything by Neville Goddard, tremendous. Uh, if you haven't read C.S. Lewis, I really like C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis is one of the only people that can actually defend traditional values. I mean, it's who Charlie Kirk thinks he is. Uh, Reading this right now is very interesting. I have a lot of stuff in front of me. But yeah, I think I gave you a lot of books. So who's DFW? Dostoevsky. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Dostoevsky, Young. I don't know who Mishima is or Pine Chan. I don't know who those last two are, or the first one. But yeah, you can't go wrong with anything Dostoevsky or anything Young. Um, I have where is it? I'm really excited to read this. I haven't read this yet, but I know the premise of it, and it sounds so funny. David Foster Wallace. What has he written? Karam Karam Karamazov Brothers. I don't know why I can't read. Is that a good one? I've been told it's his greatest work. Like someone somewhere said that's his best book. Yukio Mishimi. I don't know what that is. If I didn't know the last name, how am I gonna know the first name? What do you? I don't get the logic there. You wrote Infinite Jest. What's that about? If it's fiction, I don't know it. I don't know fiction at all. I like just started reading fiction like 3 months ago. It just shows you how bad the education system is because I love to read. I've read like 500 books this past year. And Osho said the Book of Your Dad was his favorite book of all time. The Brother Karamazov was like second. I know that for sure. Osho's favorite book is the Book of Your Dad. Come on. Get that one right at least. No, I was just letting you know. Okay, okay. Take it so serious, James. Just make fun of you. Why is it not in order? There's a really famous quote on the Book of Your Dad. Um, can't. I don't want to blow it up right now. Okay. Millions of people have tried to write books so that they can express the inexpressible, but they have utterly failed. I know only one book, the Book of Mere Dad, which has not failed. Thomas Pynchon was a modernist, no, postmodern novelist. V and Gravity Falls. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, dude, Gravity Falls. When I was a kid, I was like, this shit's cool. I never really finished it, and then I got too old to like actually watch it. But like, I wish like streaming was around at that time. I wish like Netflix and stuff, and I could have just watched the whole thing. But like, I was at that phase where I was growing out of kid shows and I was getting more into sports and stuff. So yeah, that's ChatGPT. What was the first for Osho? It said The Prophet. If you haven't read this book, this is this is like genuinely one of the best books ever written. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, who I prefer between Osho and Jung. Why are you asking me such hard questions? Oh shit, I feel like an idiot. Damn. I thought you were talking about the show Gravity Falls. I told you I don't know fiction like that, so I'm like kind of useless when it comes to that stuff. I know like the classics and the classics that I've read, but that's really it. Um, Osho and Young. Okay. Uh, there's a time I would have said Osho, but I think I use Young more in my everyday life. Dude, I'm like I can't speak right now. I'm like slurring my words. I'm not even drunk. I must be tired. What the fuck? But yeah, if you haven't read this book, The Prophet, this is like one of the best books ever written. And I spelled it wrong. But this is my favorite book of all time. The Book of Your Dad. If you read this book, like I don't know what else to say aside from you're gonna read this and think about life in a different way. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, um, I don't know. But when I read this book, it a lot of things just clicked. A lot of things just made a lot of sense. If you look at Mason and Dixon by Thomas, okay, you're gonna have to remind me to read them because I always people tell me all the time to read stuff in chat and I always forget. Um, the you want to know the thing that changed my mind on fiction was Kafka. It really was. Um, what changed inside you after reading this book? Um, just the way it explained the idea of like sin, the idea of making mistakes. And it was basically saying that like you only sin when you hide it from God. You only sin when you hide it from yourself. If you're open with it and you accept it and you move on, then it doesn't matter. But the moment you start to feel shame, the moment you start to, um, yeah, the moment you just start to accept it, it's just done. It's just over. Don't read them. Just watch some summary videos. Okay. Are you in my Discord? If you're in my Discord, send them to me, and we'll do it tomorrow. It's not a plug. You can leave the second you send them to me. That's just the easiest way. I feel like so inauthentic being like, go to my Discord. It's just so cringe. Um, how long have I been streaming for? So I'm like noticing I'm starting to get tired. Starting to like not be able to speak. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, no, this is I'm telling you, this is easily the best book I've ever read. Easily without a doubt. Um, if you like The Alchemist, you'll like this. This is The Alchemist with much more spirituality in it. So yeah. But I think I'm gonna end this because I'm like starting to stop being. See, I can't even speak right now. I have to end this. I'm just getting exhausted. I'll stream again tomorrow, probably the same time. Probably around 8:30. Honestly, whenever I get back, I'll throw it on a stream. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you guys for having a good time. Asking